Hey guys, this is AF and you're watching Dev Diaries, a bi-weekly series where I talk about my journey through developing Pixel Wars, a PvP turn-based brawler game where you get to fight real opponents for real money prizes and eternal glory. Now, before we get into this episode, I would like to invite you guys to visit pixels.af if you want to know more about myself and the project that I'm working on. You have all of my links here, as well as my involvement in both game development aspects and crypto/blockchain aspects of my life. And by the way, I'm not talking about crypto as in buy high, sell low. I'm talking about actual blockchain technology development, just to be clear. And while we're at it, I would like to ask you guys to go ahead and give a follow to DEADPXLZ on Twitter. At PixelsNFT, links down in the description as well. This is like the main page, main account, where all of the news and all of the announcements go, as well as my own personal Twitter. So feel free to give the DEADPXLZ Twitter page a follow as well if you're not following it either. Now, back to our episode. As you're probably used to by now, we'll be talking about three separate things. One, we'll be talking about a game aspect, an in-game aspect, the things that I've been working on for the game. And for this episode, we will be diving into a new hero. So there's going to be a new hero reveal. I'm very excited about it. I hope you guys like it. We're going to be doing a game shoutout where I pick a game that I've played and enjoyed and I want to recommend to you guys to try out. And also, we're going to be doing a secret giveaway at the end of this clip. So stay tuned and let's get to it. All right, so allow me to introduce Calypso, our new Pixel Wars hero. Right before we get into it, I'd like to remind you guys that all of the info that I'll be reviewing is publicly available on the Pixel Wars wiki page at wiki.pixelwars.com. Link is down in the description. Calypso. Calypso is inspired by a Greek mythology character, goes by the same name, obviously. She's a nymph who actually trapped Odysseus on an island for like 7 years. And you'll see that our little pixel hero here has a lot in common with her inspiration. So, as I said, she's cunning, agile, relies on tactics more than brute force, and the playstyle is going to be revolving around that. She's high agility, high evasion, and can crit a lot more often than your regular melee hero. Alright, so key attributes. Role. She's a trickster/control specialist. She has, in terms of strength, she has, as I said, agility, high agility, precise attacks, crowd control, and debuffing. Weaknesses are low durability, reliant on strategic positioning, as we'll see, and timing abilities effectively. All of the Pixel Wars heroes start with starting stats, so we're going to be giving our little Calypso here 100 mad points to start with, a 20% evasion, 80% accuracy, and 20% chance to critically hit. This means there's basically a 20% chance to deal double the damage that she would deal on a regular hit. In terms of movement, Calypso has a diamond-shaped movement pattern, a bit more different than Maximus's, but still pretty legit. In terms of abilities, now this is where it gets interesting. And as we've established with Maximus as well in the past, as well as Calypso, and probably all future Pixel heroes, we can only equip one primary and one secondary ability at a time when playing. And let's go ahead and review these abilities. So, our first ability for Calypso is the Glam Mirror. And what this basically does is she uses this mirror object to focus ambient light into a powerful laser, thus damaging enemies or objects within the range of its beam. So it's basically like a laser or a railgun, if you guys played Quake, I guess, where she channels this very powerful beam into one of these 4 directions here. And as we can see with the starting pattern, it's a cross-shape formation, cardinal formation. She can target individually any of the directions in a cross space, and in a cross pattern, and only 2 tiles forward. So this is her range. For level 1, she fires a prismatic laser beam in a single straight up line to 2 tiles, as I said earlier. You'll see here that the cooldown is 1 turn, and she gains 5 mad points per successful hit, and the opponent gets a 10 mad point drainage if successfully hit. Level 2 introduces a expanded range, so instead of 2 tiles, we're going to be going with 3 tiles in a cross-shaped formation. And, very important, the beam can now pierce through the first enemy or destructible obstacle it encounters. This makes for a very interesting tactic, right? Because if you can pierce through obstacles, it means you can actually get to an enemy who's hiding behind an obstacle. And it stops obviously at indestructible objects, because there are going to be indestructible objects on the map as well. Level 3, enemies hit take additional damage over time. Okay, so basically what it does is we create an additional damage over time effect for the next 2 turns. Basically, if successfully hit, the opponent will be penaltied with -2 mad damage per tick of the damage over time effect for 2 turns. So -2 damage per turn for the next 2 turns, in addition to the 10 mad damage he takes. Level 4, well, obviously on level 4 the ability becomes even more powerful. We expand its range by 1 tile, and the beam now pierces through all enemies and destructible obstacles in its path and stops at indestructible objects. So we're not only piercing through one obstacle or enemy, we are actually piercing through every obstacle or enemy that we encounter on this 4 tile pattern. So pretty powerful, I would say. Now moving on to the next ability of our little hero here, it's gonna be the Charm Dust, which is a secondary ability and acts like a debuff / AoE sort of effect. Now, let's see what it actually is. So, Charm Dust is a powerful debuff ability designed to reduce an opponent's accuracy, throwing them off balance and making it harder for them to land hits. It's basically a utility ability who's going to help us disorient our opponent, thus sort of allowing us to land, to either become more mobile around him, or be able to not get hit that much, because since we're throwing this magic Charm Dust into our opponent, they will have decreased accuracy. The starting pattern, so we can basically toss this in a 1 tile radius around our current position, so anywhere around our current position is good. So basically tossing this little Charm Dust bag, where on level 1 we reduce the target's accuracy by 20% for 1 turn. Has a 1 turn cooldown and 1 turn duration. Calypso, obviously there has to be a cost for this. Calypso gets 10 mad drained from her on a successful cast. And there is no mad depletion for our opponent. Only the -20% accuracy debuff. Let's see how it scales throughout the levels. So level 2, we reduce the target accuracy by -30%, so an additional 10%. And I think everything else is the same. Yes, level 3 reduces the target's accuracy by -40% for 1 turn. Range is expanded by 1 tile. So we're basically looking at this kind of pattern right now on level 3, which allows us to be more mobile in terms of we don't need to be necessarily adjacent to the enemy in order to be able to throw our Charm Dust at him. Level 4 reduces target accuracy by 40% for 1 turn, and now we gain an additional AoE effect. So basically what we do is the Charm Dust explodes on impact and creates a Charm Dust cloud around where it was thrown, where it landed, which has a similar effect as the original. Same thing, cooldown 1 turn, duration 1 turn. Is now a bit more expensive to cast because it's more powerful, and 0 mad depletion on opponent. But for example, if the opponent moves onto a adjacent tile, he will also get another 40% accuracy reduction for 1 turn. So basically it's the same effect if the opponent lands anywhere where the AoE is at that moment. And the dust cloud lasts for 1 turn. Alright, moving on to our third ability, which is also kind of tactical. It's called a Tangle Trap, where basically our hero places a pile of tangled ribbons on one tile, and if the opponent steps in said pile of ribbons in our Tangle Trap, he will be penaltied in terms of movement reduction, thus disrupting their positioning. The trap not only limits movement, but also synergizes with Calypso's other abilities to control the flow of combat. And there's an interesting mechanic here, and we'll get right into it. Placed traps are not visible to the opponent. By the way, this is a trap. We haven't spoken about traps until now. So when we place a trap, we can see it as the player, we can see it on the map where it is and whatnot, but the opponent cannot see it, it is hidden. Because if they could see it, what would be the point anymore? Alright, so our starting range is a cross-shaped formation around wherever Calypso is on the map, obviously barring indestructible objects and so on and so forth. And let's have a look at level 1. Now, level 1 reduces the movement range of any opponent who steps on the trap by -1 tile. So, for example, if Maximus were to step on this tile, he would have a movement range reduced by 1 tile, with a 1 tile minimum hero range preserved. So the minimum is obviously 1 tile around the hero, because we won't be able to just keep the hero in a place where it completely limit its movement. And we're talking about another thing that we need to talk about is a maximum active trap number here related to the trap system. So what happens here is we can actually lay 2 traps maximum on a map. Active trap duration, so these once we lay a trap on the map, these traps become active. We can have at most 2 active traps on the map. Duration is until maximum stack is exceeded or trap is triggered. Maximum stack meaning 2 traps. Trigger trap duration is 1 turn, cooldown is 1 turn for this ability. Calypso on cast, she has a -3 mad penalty for placing a trap and a +10 for triggering when a trap gets triggered. In terms of opponent, he gets 0 mad damage, but his movement is obviously reduced. Effect. For level 2, the traps can now be placed at the +1 tile range, so we have an extra tile added to our range, to our cross formation range. The maximum active traps is increased to 3, and obviously active trap duration is the same, cooldown is the same, trigger trap duration is the same. Same mad penalty and regeneration for Calypso as well. The opponent gets 0 mad penalty, but only gets his movement reduced by 2 tiles. Level 3, trapped opponents now have their range reduced by -2 tiles, 1 tile minimum hero range preserved, obviously. And the maximum active traps is increased to 4 traps. And I believe the rest stays the same, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. Level 4 adds minor mad depletion to the opponent who triggers the trap, so we increase the maximum active traps to 5, so we can place at most 5 traps. And we also inflict some mad damage on the opponent per each trap being triggered by. Cool. Now let's go on to our final ability, which is Razor Braids. I really had fun naming this one. And these things, what they are, they're basically a sort of engineered scrunchies that Calypso uses to put her braids in. And what happens is, this is like a melee-based AoE attack, and Calypso equips her pigtails with razor-sharp scrunchies. When triggered, she starts spinning rapidly, turning her pigtails into deadly weapons, dealing damage to all nearby enemies in a circular radius around her. Now what this is, basically, it's, as I said, splash damage AoE. And it's very interesting in terms of dynamics, and I'll show you in just a second. This is our starting pattern, by the way, so when we activate the attack, Calypso will start spinning, and everything that is around her, and at a one tile radius, will get affected by this, obviously, damage. Alright, so let's review the levels. Calypso spins several times, dealing direct mad damage to any opponent in her way. So what this means is we spin for 3 times at level 1. So there's every revolution that we do is a new hit. Cooldown is 1 turn. Calypso gets a -5 mad per cast. The opponent gets -5 mad per hit. And a very important bit of information for you guys to hold on to is the fact that every time this hit counts as per 1 revolution. So potentially, if every spin that we do hits, the opponent will get -15 total mad per hit. And also, being a direct hit, this counts as 1 attack that can hit, miss, or deal critical damage. So it just behaves as a regular attack, but it's only like a 3-in-1 sort of flurry type of attack. At level 2, we expand the radius, spin for 4 times, and I think everything remains the same. Level 3, we add a bleed dot. So if we hit a opponent, he gets a damage over time effect, causing him to bleed, and he loses 1 mad per tick on 2 ticks. And it ticks for 2 turns, basically. The spin is 4 times, similar to level 2, but the cooldown is increased to 2 turns. Now, level 4. In terms of effect, the mad cost is reduced by 50%, and we spin for 5 times. So we get a 5 mad per cast penalty on Calypso, and the opponent gets 5 mad per hit for 5 times if hit on each spin. So potentially -25 if we hit him for all of the spins. And by the way, the chances for us hitting the opponent is basically starting stat is dictated by our accuracy. So obviously there is a 20% chance we might miss. All right. So this has been the 4th ability, and now let's go on and see what happens in Mad Mode. And I decided to name Mad Mode, it's Glamageddon. It's a very suited name for our Calypso. And let's see what it's all about. But before we get into specifics, I would like to remind you guys that Mad Mode is a special stage in a 1v1 battle where once the map objective is activated, so for example for the Void, as we already know by now, the map objective is to turn on all the 4 switches and get the juicer flowing. So once that's done, we can activate Mad Mode, but in order to be able to activate it, there's a couple of prerequisites. So the first one was the objective being fulfilled, being complete, and the second is we need to have at least 50 mad in our mad meter to be able to activate this. And once activated, we kind of freeze the mad meter and so on and so forth. I've already gone through this mechanic. You can find it here or in the last dev diary. It's pretty much the same thing. Now let's go and see how this impacts our Calypso here. Calypso. Its Glamageddon is when its Glamageddon is active, she will gain the following movement pattern. So unlike the original movement pattern, is like a diamond shape formation, we're gonna be getting a X-shaped formation in order to be able to sort of give us a bit of edge and predictability against other characters as well. And let's see how Mad Mode affects Calypso's abilities, the very abilities that we spoke about earlier. So, during mad mode, abilities remain unchanged unless otherwise specified. This is a rule that applies to all of our heroes, by the way. And we'll see how it impacts Glam Mirror first. So, the effect is the ability's range becomes infinite, and Calypso's focused beam pierces both enemies and destructible objects. So, unlike our original version, our non-mad mode version of the Glam Mirror, we get an infinite range. This means we basically get, we basically turn Alice into like a map-wide sort of, sorry, not Alice, Calypso, into a map-wide sort of sniper hero. Which is pretty cool. I think it could make for a very interesting dynamic, especially late game. Especially against characters who are hiding behind obstacles and whatnot. Onto our next ability in Mad Mode, which is Charm Dust. Its effect is due to prolonged exposure to Mad Juice, Charm Dust now becomes unstable. Each cast now also inflicts -5 Mad damage. So, if you guys remember, we just spoke about this. Mad depletion on opponent is 0 Mad on non-Mad mode. When Mad Mode is not active, but with Mad Mode active, Charm Dust also does a additional 5 Mad damage to the opponent when hit. Tangle Trap has a couple of effects during Mad Mode. Calypso can now pick up previously placed traps and reposition them on the battlefield. So before this, we couldn't actually pick up the traps, and we're dependent on enemies actually stepping in said traps. But now we can pick them up for Mad Mode and actually reposition them on the battlefield. There's also a caveat now. Traps are now visible on the map and act as indestructible objects. So be careful around those traps. Razor Braid's effect during Mad Mode are that the ability gains a knockback effect, pushing enemies back by 2 tiles. And that each successful hit resets the ability's pin counter for up to 3 times. What this means basically is if we do the Razor Braid ability, she starts spinning and she hits, and when she hits the enemy, she moves, she knocks him back by 2 tiles in addition to all of the effects that we spoke about earlier during regular mode and not Mad Mode. Each successful hit resets the ability's spin counter for up to 3 times. So we can actually reset the spin counter for 3 times, for up to 3 times. But this we're basically eviscerating our opponent if we're actually knocking them back into like an indestructible object, for example, or like the map edge, right? It's very, very interesting ability. We also get some additional effects. So this is Razzle Dazzle, all mad draining effects. This is specific to Calypso. And all mad draining effects basically are now reduced by +5 mad points. Okay, and I think that about does Mad Mode. There's also some strategic consideration here for you guys to check out. I'm sure you guys can read through these on your own. Also behavior flow in terms of Mad Mode. And some playstyle and synergies and strategic highlights, generic strategic highlights for Calypso's play mode. And that pretty much wraps it up with our new Pixel hero. I hope you guys find her pretty interesting, and we'll take the time to dive deeper. And I think that it will make for a very interesting dynamic when we pit these two guys, our existing Pixel heroes, in a 1v1. Game in the very near future. Alright, so moving on to our next section, which is a game shout out. I would pretty much like to shout out this very, very cool video game, which is called Death's Door. And it's an action adventure game developed by an indie studio, as per usual, with a lot of elements from both Zelda games as well as Dark Souls or Souls-like games. Let's have a look at this little trailer here. You basically play this little crow fellow who's in charge of collecting souls for the underworld, and he works a desk job, and the underworld is so boring apparently. Everybody's at their desks and so on, and he just goes and encounters a lot of funny and playful characters on his adventures. But you know, the game, although it's a bit childish, may look a bit childish, is not childish at all. It's actually pretty difficult. I found it difficult, at least, but it's very enjoyable, and it's cool what a couple of people can actually achieve with the right vision and mindset. So I actually encourage you guys to go ahead and pick up this game if you can. Maybe wait for a discount or whatnot. You can find it on any platform. You can play it on any platform. I personally play it on my Nintendo Switch, but would be very much down to play it on my PC as well. It's very, very easy to control. And moving on to the secret giveaway, well, I guess you guys, you know, pretty much figured it out by yourselves that this Death Diary giveaway is going to be Death's Door. So go ahead and join the DEADPXLZ Discord and get verified as a DEADPXLZ holder, as well as obviously follow DEADPXLZ on Twitter and myself in order to be eligible to win. And I will pick out a winner and announce him next week or 1 week from now. And I'm looking forward to it. Alright guys, so this has been it. I hope you have a great week ahead and enjoy your Sunday. If you're watching this on Sunday, peace out.